Cars Garage. In this episode, I'll be assembling the Team Associated B6.3 bags 7 and 8. Let's get started. So, before we take any parts off the parts trees, I'll give you a little warning as to not, and I repeat, do not cut off the tabs on the rear hub inserts. And let me show you that. The rear hub inserts are these pieces right here. You've got tabs on here. Make sure y'all can see it. There's tabs. So don't trim those off because that's an indication of how you've installed the rear hub insert, and that sets your rear axle height. So for the kit setup, we use the number 3 facing up, which are these two right here. Okay, so I'll be assembling the right side first, and then I'll do the left side as well, but I'll speed it up in order to save time on the video. So you take your 3mm, or not 3mm, it is a plus 3mm rear hub insert, and you face the number 3 facing up when you install it. So see if you can see that on the video. You have a number 3 and up, so that's going to be facing upward when you install it. So you can see here, this is the top where you have the 2 holes. Your tab is actually going to be facing downward when you install it, just like that. Okay. We're going to need some Loctite because we'll be going into aluminum. We're going to need 3 of these washers. And we're going to need 2 M3 by 12mm screws. Just get started, and then put in the next screw. last piece is going to be the ball stud along with one of these washers. And again, we're going into aluminum with this, so we'll add a little bit of Loctite. So that's what it'll end up looking like. Let's move on to the next side, and I'll speed this up just a little bit. And we're done with bag 7, step 1. Let's move on to bag 7, step 2. So step 2 is assembling your CVAs and installing the bearings into your hubs. So again, we're gonna start off with doing the right bearing, or the right side first. And what we're gonna need for this, we're gonna use that black grease that they provided. And then we're gonna need a 10 by 15 by 4 bearing and a 5 by 12 by 4 bearing. There's only a few bearings left, so these are the two that we're gonna need. So the way I like to install these is gonna be the rubber side out, so the blue seal facing outward, and the blue seal facing outward here as well. I'm gonna go ahead and install it on the left side. So next, grab a set that we're gonna need. And so on this piece here, which is called the CVA coupler, we need to put some of this black grease. All right. So next, we install the coupler and have the hole in that coupler facing, or see if we can get that on the camera. There we go. The hole should line up in that slot. So when we put the CVA axle, you put this over and then slide the pin through one of the holes through the coupler. Just like that, so that pin will hold everything together, and it's captured, that pin gets captured by the bearing. So as soon as you're done, install it in the bearing so that pin doesn't fall out. And I'm gonna move on to step 3, just so that way that pin does not fall out. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna install another pin, which this is the hex pin. We're gonna install it on the axle here. And then we're gonna install our 5mm hex onto that pin, and then install our M1.6 by 5 millimeter socket head cap screw. And I am not going to add any Loctite on this because it's a very small screw, and you do not, I repeat, do not want to over tighten this because it's easy to strip out the head, and if you do so, it's going to be very difficult to remove, and you're going to be very frustrated trying to get this off if you ever need to service it. So just tighten it, get a feel on how it's tightening, and that gap will close up a little bit. See, that gap will close up a little bit, and you should be able to take that hex off by hand. All right, let me do the other one. There we go. That was the left side. Now we can finish up Bag 7 Step 3 by installing these assemblies onto the rear control arms. And in order to do this, I would suggest laying the car flat. Otherwise, the suspension is going to droop too much. But you're going to install to the right side. You're going to need 2 of these spacers. Be careful when trimming these because the parts are small and kind of hard to hold on to. And these spacers are going to go on the front side of the hub. So the way it's going to install is you're going to put your hinge pin, insert it from the back. It'll go through your hub. And then you'll have 2 spacers. And your axle will install underneath your sway bar. So take a look at that. It'll install underneath the sway bar. And then you take your M3 lock nut and put it on the front side of the hinge pin. I wouldn't use an electric screwdriver to tighten this down because it will probably over tighten it, and you want to make sure that you do not cause any binding, and you want to have that hub moving easily, just like that. and I believe you actually can't over tighten it because the thread is not fully threaded, it's only partially threaded, and the nut is stopping there. So we should be good on that. And again, I'd recommend working on a flat surface with the car, because otherwise the axle is going to pop out of the outdrive cup. And there we go, and that's the end of bag 7. Now we're going to move on to bag 8, and I'm actually going to skip forward to bag 8 step 3 in order to build the rear camber turnbuckle, so that way we don't have to worry about the axles falling out, and it'll kind of make it easier to maneuver the car around and stuff like that without having, being frustrated with that part. So we're gonna use this grease to help with the installation of the turnbuckles. If you put a little bit of grease on the turnbuckle threads, it'll help thread on easier into the plastic. We're going to use these ball cups. Having a digital caliper at this point would make it very useful to set the camber links up. So one of the tips that is in the book is to install the turnbuckle with the notch. You can see there's a notch on the turnbuckles that indicates that this is left-hand threaded. So you install this on the left side of the car on every side, on every part, so that way you have that reminder that it is left-hand threaded. So I'm going to do the left-hand thread first, and instead of turning clockwise, I'll be turning anti-clockwise to thread it on. Okay, so I basically got it threaded on until I saw no threads. So now I'm going to measure and see where I'm at. We need to be at 25.5 millimeters. So I'm at 27.6. So I think what I'm going to do is actually put it on the car and use the turnbuckle wrench to make it a little easier for me to adjust it and make sure that the ball cups are in the right orientation. So I'm going to use the wrench that they include. 26.7. Right at 26. A little too far. We're at 25.5. So there you go. I'm gonna do the other side real quick, and then we'll move on to steps 1 and 2. But this way, the axle won't pop out if you want to use a stand to work on your car. Close to 25.5. I'm actually going to recheck the camber and everything once I have the wheels on, because anything, you know, in manufacturing processes, things cannot be perfect. So I'm gonna check with the wheels on and make sure that my camber left and right are identical. Okay, so now we're going to go back and do bag 8 step 1, which is the steering turnbuckle. So again, we're going to need 4 of these. Alright, so for the steering turnbuckle, the ball cups need to be 90 degrees offset from each other. So I basically got the ball cups on there until I couldn't see any threads, and I'm right at what they were asking for, 27.7. So at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and install these, and we'll go from there. I can do the other side. And remember, install all the turnbuckles with that notch to the left side of the car, so you know that when you adjust the turnbuckles, you only have to go in the same direction on every single turnbuckle in order to lengthen them or shorten them. All right, I'm a little short here, but I'm going to go ahead and install it, and then adjust it on the car. And again, due to manufacturing differences and tolerancing, I would definitely recheck your toe after you get the wheels and tires installed. And that's perfect right there. All right, now I can move on to Bag 8 Step 2, which is the front camber turnbuckle. So again, we're gonna pretty much be doing the same thing, except we're gonna have a 26.9 millimeter long turnbuckle. Let's get 4 of these ready. Okay, so these turnbuckles are also going to be like the steering turnbuckles where the cups are offset by 90 degrees. So I basically got the threads are no longer showing. I'm going to check, see how close we are. We're at 27.12, so we're not that far off. I'm going to go ahead and install this onto the car. And then once I have both of them assembled and on the car, I will adjust them. And remember, install it with that notch on the left side of the car. So I didn't notice that there was some interference here with the front wing mount when installing this, but once it's installed, it doesn't seem to touch anything and there's pretty free movement. So just be aware of that. Again, this is going to be, the ball cups are going to be 90 degrees off from each other, and you got to make sure that on this side the 90 degree offset is going to be different, so you guys can see mine doesn't quite line up when I have the left side of the turnbuckle where I need it to. So I'm going to adjust that real quick, and then we can install it and then get the right lengths that we need. Okay. So we need to have 26.9 on these links. I'm at 27 over here. So I will make this a little shorter. Okay, 26.9 there. And now we're at 27 and a half here. 26.9 there, so we're good to go. And again, I'm gonna check this once I have the wheels and tires on to make sure that I've got the right amount of camber on both sides. Once I have all the electronics in, the battery in, and so forth. So that's the end of bags 7 and 8. Thank you for joining me. Please like and subscribe. Please leave comments below if this helped you out, if you have any tips or tricks that might help other builders. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.